Hi guys, I'm sorry for the little bit late of a start. We had our Spy Girls stunt groups in there teaching Kenzie and it went a little bit over, but I'm getting everything up right now. I apologize. I know. We need to. That would help if it was plugged in. There we go. Okay. What'd you say? I was wondering if she. Oopsies. Bye. Bye, Shelby. Bye. He still never responded to me after I was like. It's fine. Okay, sharing screen on here. Okay, pulling this up now. The microwave. Okie dokie. Oh, yeah, it's kind of cute though. Okay, that's up and that's up. I'm gonna turn my camera on. I'm gonna shut the light off. Hey, it's just us, Riley? Yeah. I know. I'm gonna sit back here. Oh. You can come stand over here. Okay, this is gonna maybe be scary when I turn my camera on. How do I actually do that? There we go. Hey guys. I don't know why. Anyways, maybe we can turn on these lights.
It's dark.
It's no, that's fine. I mean, that's fine. Turn it on. Yeah, that's fine. We'll keep, I feel like that's better because we can still see this. Yeah. There's Riley. We'll wait 10 seconds until our food's done. Maddie. Everything's fine.
Okay.
You want to bite of it?
No, thank you.
Okay. It looks kind of.
Yeah.
Okay, that's gonna be the angle there. All right, so hi everybody. I feel like it's been forever since we've done one of these. And I'm excited to be back doing one. I'm gonna move you guys down here. And so today's topic is every moment matters, structuring a productive season and practice. So we're gonna talk about how to make the most out of every moment you have with your athletes at every moment of your season from beginning to end. A lot of it is focused on practices and then during competition season. But I have a little bit about like outside of practice time and those other moments that aren't just like skill and technique based that we're gonna touch on too. You guys can see my screen, right? Okay, just making sure. Kind of reiterating here the introduction to it. Every single moment that you have matters, from coming in the gym to every water break, leaving the gym, everything that happens while you're here, while you're at competition, every interaction is important. You don't know what moment will be the one that changes someone's life or that can change the trajectory of your season, and you don't know what tomorrow holds. So make the most out of today and make the most out of every moment you have. And that is the main purpose of this PowerPoint. We're going to talk a lot about the process of getting where you want to be. And so this quote always kind of is one that like grounds me and brings me back to why I do it and what's going on in like hard moments. And so I've had it on maybe, I think honestly every slideshow so far that I've done, but be outcome aware, but purpose and process driven. Basically have your goal and know where you want to be, but be driven by the current state, by what's happening now, your purpose and the process to get there. And if you're focused on those things and driven by what is happening through that process, driven by the struggle, driven by the want to be better, that outcome is just more satisfying. And then I wanted to take a minute here and remind everybody of that very first all-star training that we did whenever it was mandatory, so everybody was there. That I had everybody write their goals and purpose and values, and then we all wrote our mission statements for ourselves as coaches. I have had quite the week, as you may know. And the other day I randomly found that paper that had that on there, and it really brought me back to like why, like through this struggle, why do I keep doing it? Like yes, we get paid, but like we signed up for this. We sign up to put as much effort and work in as we do. And so I just wanted to remind you that you have those, and now that we enter competition season, might be a good time to take another look at that and just remind yourself of why you're here and why you do what you do. And like your purpose and mission and stuff, because it helped me, and I did honestly kind of forget that it existed. And so if you know where it is, maybe take a look at it, and it can give you like a new mindset going into comp season. Okay, so I skipped one, I apologize. Quality coaching, this is from the book called Every Moment Matters. Consists of these three things: contextual fit, athlete-centered outcome, and essential coaching knowledge. And so when you have all three of those, you are like your optimal coach, or if you try to achieve all three of those, you're setting yourself up the best that you can. And so having the contextual fit is adapting to the specific needs of where you are and who you are with. And so changing how you coach and what methods you use based on the athletes that you have, and also the environment that you're in. That could be different age groups adapting how you coach, different personalities and how they learn, but also like a practice environment versus competition environment. Your context of where you're coaching changes, so your coaching should change and adapt to that. Being athlete centered and
that outcome of an athlete-centered like focus when you coach is important. And so that's focused on developing the confidence, competence, connection, and character, which are all things I think in the first meeting that we did, we defined and outlined all of those and how to reach all of those categories. And then essential coaching knowledge, so knowing your sport and knowing what you do. And that one does usually come last in this pyramid of how you coach and how you should go into practices and things, being athlete-centered, giving that connection and compassion to things, and how you approach the people that you're interacting with matter more than what you know about the sport. First, we're going to talk about the athlete-centered environment, though. The athletes are active participants. And when they have increase in knowledge transfer, and they value discovery and goal ownership and autonomy, there's an increase in development of their skills and improvement overall as a team. So we want to foster an environment that gives them that increase of knowledge, but allow them to have accountability and ownership of their own actions and that autonomy to make decisions and have a little bit of control. And then we should want them to learn and discover while they're at practice. Kind of like they encourage in school, at least when you're younger, to be curious, and play is different than when you're at practice, but to explore all these different options and discover things as you learn. That's what we should be trying to do here too, in all aspects. And we should want them to know how you get the results that you want, not just preaching it to them and them doing exactly what they're told and not caring. But if they know how they're going to get there, then that can help them do the steps that are needed to get there. And so how do you create this? You can ask questions to them. So if something were to go wrong, you can ask a stunt group, for example, what do you think went wrong in that? If it went well, what made that succeed? What can we do better next time? Things that you don't just give a correction, but make them think about what happened and how to improve it. It just adds a little bit of more of a mental focus. And then again, if they know, for example, the first one, if they know why it went wrong, they're able to make that change. If you are just correcting them, but they don't know why something went wrong, then they're not going to know. For maybe it was a fluke accident. So at competition, their hands, it was because of their grip. If that goes wrong again, they don't know how to fix it because they don't know in that instance that that's why the stunt went wrong. And so you want to teach them those things. So again, that knowledge can transfer to different aspects. If they know it in one context and know the why, they'll be able to apply it somewhere else. And then they need to love the game in order to learn it. And so if they don't love being here, if they don't love coming and love cheer, then they're not going to be invested in learning it and practicing more and discovering more. And I added that to this slide just because I think helping them love the game, love cheer, is a huge result of coaches making it athlete centered. If you have a different focus, if you don't focus on them as people and like give that connection to let them grow, make a connection as a person, have that compassion and engagement, then they're not going to love coming here and love being an athlete, being a cheerleader. Next, oops, this one didn't change. Sorry, Riley. Okay, next, I have this is from a article that was called Mastering Productivity, a comprehensive guide on how to plan your week. And so this article had absolutely nothing to do with cheer or sports or anything in the realm of practice planning or athletics. But I found it interesting that these were the 9 steps or parts of the guide that they said like helped you master productivity by planning your week. So they had setting clear goals, prioritizing tasks, use technological tools, create a weekly routine, batch similar tasks, review and reflect, embrace flexibility, maintain work-life balance, and continuously improve. I think that applies to a week and someone's workday and life and whatever it is. But if you're thinking about how you plan your season and plan your practice, I think that is a pretty good guide, baseline guide on what you need to do that. And just the fact of this is as simple as productivity in your life. If it's all your roles and responsibilities in life, that's the same thing we do as a coach and in the cheer world, and we can use this as a guide, or it just more so maybe proves that what I'm gonna talk about next and outline next is effective, and can transfer to other aspects too, because we set goals for ourselves. That's usually the first step. Prioritize what you need to do to get to those goals, what you need to get, what tasks you need to get done. You make your weekly practices, you put things together that can be worked on together to save, like, make the most out of your time, review and reflect on what happened and what you need to change moving forward. So many times you need to adapt. We all are focused on continuously improving, and I guess it doesn't directly apply, but everyone should have a work-life balance. So that fits in there too. But again, nothing directly related to cheer, but I thought it was a good overview of how we can plan our season. And so we're going to get into that now. We touched on the season phases again at that first all-star meeting. We had outlined that we were going to have those meetings at different points in the season. Kind of gave them different names here, but this is the basis of it. And so I have preparation, repetition, and then cleaning and upgrading. Preparation would be your June through September timeframe. But we're going to go into each of these a little bit more. This is just an overview, but mental and physical preparation, and you're focused on being ready to hit and execute the skills that you're going to need to do in a full out. The next phase is repetition. This is your October through January timeframe, where you're really focused on consistency and repetition. And this is when we'll be focused on hitting that first full out and then all of your full outs after that as we approach competition season. And so all of those reps of your skills, of your whole routine, getting consistent and confident in everything is important. And then the last one is cleaning and upgrading. This will be January through May, our end of season, our entire competition season. Your focus there will be using your score sheet to benefit you and to prepare for the end of season events. At that point, you should have a pretty solid grasp on your routine of hitting it and your athletes knowing it. So your focus is cleaning every single section and then upgrading as needed to get that score higher. So that first phase, we're going to go back to preparation. This again is the June through October. You're just getting your team, you are starting your season, and here are things to focus on. So you want to make sure that your standards are known from day one. Set your expectations and hold them from that point moving forward, because if not, that is really hard to reverse and change and go back on. Remember all of those culture things that we've talked about in the past. There's been so many, but that's what drives behavior. Behavior doesn't come first and then culture. Your culture sets your expectations and the behavior that happens on your team. And so whenever you set that, whenever you bring that positive energy or how you approach situations, what you do on the downtime of your practice and those team bondings and things, that is what drives the behavior of athletes in general and their attitude, but also their skills. This time is focused on skill acquisition. And so a lot of people may be placed on your team with the skills that you need them to have, but you might need more tumbling, you might need new jumpers, you might have stunters that have never based before, or you need them to learn a new skill. And so teaching those skills happens in this time. We're all focused on getting our stunt groups solidified, who is in what position, who's our tumblers, who's responsible for what. If you're doing any extra things in your season of not many of us do this, but all I'm thinking of is like assigning a team captain. If they have that responsibility, that would happen here. Mental preparation is very important during this time and throughout the whole season, but getting them mentally prepared for what's to come next, because it is only going to get harder from this point forward. Also, along with that mental prep, we can start introducing the idea of a full out and not making it scary and dreadful here, preparing them to be excited about those types of things. And that quote at the beginning, I feel like applies perfectly here. You can start introducing the idea of being driven by that process, being driven by the fact that like failure and mistakes only make you learn and make you stronger. It doesn't mean that you are awful and never gonna get better and life is over when you make a mistake. This is the time when you're drilling technique, and that is super, super important, because if you have the skills to say you have back walkovers, if they can't do them with straight legs, pointed toes outside of the routine, we can't expect them to do it inside the routine. And so that technique drilling should start here. Depends on where you are with your team, that it might have to be carried out through the whole season. Some teams might be able to get that drilled and perfected for those things like legs together and like straight arms, flyer body positions, whatever it may be, on an individual basis in this time frame. And then starting to work on endurance, and along with endurance, I think comes the things that you know are going to be a struggle in the future, but you can start working on now. So you want to start preparing them for those full outs with conditioning every practice. And then, for example, I came out of last season knowing that our jump score was just always too low for my liking for no reason. And so I made it like a commitment to myself and the team that starting from day one all the way up until just recently, because we've had more going on, but every single practice, every single tumbling class, we would do jump conditioning with ankle weights. And so that is something you can do in this time frame that's going to prepare you for the future. Anything that's going to help you in the long run should happen right now. The next phase is the repetition phase. So again, this is your November through January timeframe. And when you have your routine now, you had choreography and you're getting ready to hit a full out, getting prepared to keep going full out. And so whenever you're preparing to do a full out, your end goal is obviously hitting a full out. And so you will start from there and work backwards with your practices to make a plan. I have really benefited from doing a month by month practice plan, not just like as the week comes coming up with it, but planning out your month as a whole for your team. And then you can see from like a farther out view of this is what we're going to work on and this is our goal. Everyone, something different works for everyone. You don't have to do it that way, but if it's something that you want to try or you're struggling with planning, maybe try a further out plan that can help you work backwards more from your goals. We want to start designing practices so the full outs are the easy part, and again, so they're not dreadful. And so if you make everything else harder, the athletes will be not so disappointed in full outs, or they'll be asking to do a full out. And if they complain about it, you can give them one of those other options of if they say like, oh no, we're going to do a full out, you can say, oh, well, do you want to do XYZ, which you know is harder for them and not a preferred. And so then they'll be like, oh no, we'll just do a full out, and get that mentality of like, oh, this isn't that bad. So whenever you're planning those practices and you're getting your team ready, the biggest things that you want to focus on there are increasing their endurance and stamina that they need for a routine, learning how to push through fatigue and understand the mental focus and mental effort that's needed to hit a full out and help them realize their abilities even when they're tired. And a lot of that goes into that mental toughness that this phase is building. It 100% is also building the physical side of it with their endurance, but the mental aspect of that and being mentally strong enough to hit and push through a full out and implement those corrections whenever it's needed in a full out is huge here. Another huge aspect of being able to hit your full out and going full out is deciding what goes in the routine. You want to make the routine hittable before they go full out, and if you know it's not, then you are setting the team and yourself up for failure with an unachievable goal. So everybody wants to succeed. We want our team to succeed. But if we leave that stunt in there that has fallen 50% of the time, then that's probably an unachievable goal. It's not really realistic. And so if it's not hitting 90 to 95% of the time outside of the routine, downgrade it, take it out, whatever it may be to make it hittable, then you can work on it and add it back in with the upgraded version. At the bottom, I have some examples of things that would go into preparing for a full out, the things that build your endurance, exercises, activities that we have done or that we've learned from other courses that help get your team ready to go full out. And so adding conditioning before or after a full out in general. We've also done conditioning in between. So you do a half of your routine, immediately condition, then finish out the second half. Doing stunt group full outs or half team full outs repeatedly over and over again so they get a little break. Backwards chaining. I have used this for a few seasons now, and it really helps if there's a section that you're struggling with hitting, not necessarily technique, but if you're struggling hitting, you say you're having trouble with your pyramid, you only do your dance and then you add pyramid and dance. I'm sorry, I'm pretending this is like a traditionally set up routine. So then you have pyramid, then dance, and then you would do the section before that, running, tumbling, pyramid, dance. And so you keep adding on backwards. So they just repeatedly do those repetitions. And it gets harder every time because you're adding that. They start at the newest section every time. So the first time all they did was dance, and then they do pyramid and dance. And you can do conditioning before or after those. You can make all of these harder or easier just based on how you adapt them or upgrade and downgrade each task based on what you need. The important thing to know here, which is hard to do, but it's super important to remember that if you're using these strategies for the purpose of them getting stronger, then the goal is for them to struggle and get stronger. So if there are mistakes and falls, we don't need to acknowledge them and make them feel worse because your purpose is still being met. They are getting stronger by doing that. And so just a good job. Yeah, we know that was tough, but you're getting stronger. It's going to benefit in the long run, and let them go back and do it again. Because you also don't want them getting mad or frustrated through that because it's just not going to help anything. And the repetition. So even though all of the rest of the things on this slide is to get you prepared to hit your first full out, the last bullet point there, which it's at the bottom, and we can barely see it here in person, but it's just as important. After you hit that, you want to get those reps of every skill and start drilling all of the skills that you need so they can increase strength, technique, and confidence, because your beginning of season competition goal is hitting, but we all know that we want to look the best that we can. So this is also the time to drill and rep out all the things you need. Okay, Next, we're gonna talk about the last phase, which is cleaning your routine. A lot of this information is from another course about cleaning and perfecting your routine that I took this from and added it to here. And so there's going to be 4 phases, 4 categories of cleaning. And they are isolate, drill, integrate, and repeat. So we're going to go through each one of those. This would be for your competition season, basically January till the end. So we're going to pretend that we hit a full out. Maybe we already went to our first competition. We have a score sheet back. Now what do we do? First step is isolation. So identify sections of the routine that need strengthened, and your best bet is to use your score sheet to do this. Even though you might watch your routine and think, oh, those elite stunts really looked awful. If you scored the best in elite stunts and worst in tumbling and jumps, maybe focus on those other things first, because we want to get every single score the highest they can be. We want to isolate skills in their simplest form. And so you want to focus on the most specific and simple correction that you can instead of a whole section. So if you're isolating something, you might pick the standing tumbling section, but you're isolating the correction of timing. You're isolating the correction of legs together or legs straight, or even as simple as pointed toes, landings, beginning clap, whatever it is, you want to isolate a specific, simple correction. What can help with isolation of sections and choosing those sections is making a schedule for yourself. So like I said before, monthly would maybe be best here. Again, you could do it longer or shorter. But if you have your schedule, you look at your score sheet and you just plan out, this day I'm focusing on standing tumbling, this day I'm focusing on baskets and pyramid, like whatever it is, or even more specific than that. This day I'm focusing on pointed toes and back walkovers. This day I'm focused on dips of our elite stunt, whatever it may be. But if you have a schedule for yourself, at least for me, it helps stick to that. And then again, see the overall picture of, okay, at the end of the month, then we're going to have XYZ isolated and drilled and worked on. The next part of it is drilling. So you want to change the environment that they practice their skills in, so that ideally this would happen not in their routine spots. Say you do your routine and your tumbling happens front to back. Maybe you put them on a line going like from the mirrors towards the tumble track to change up where they're doing it, or opposite. If they don't go in a traditional pattern, then you put them on just on lines going forward to backwards. Focus again on a simple correction. So if we're focusing on timing and you have one athlete going, don't correct them for their legs being bent. You can correct timing or just praise that their timing was good. Corrections that are being made and focused need to be actionable and specific. So if we are correcting a stunt group, it doesn't benefit them as much if we say, hey, you guys were slow on that and it made it off count. They might nod their head and know that they're slow, but it might not translate. How do we fix that? So we can tell our flyers to stand up faster. We can tell our bases to move quicker from the bottom of the dip. We can tell them to not dip as low. Very specific corrections that allow them to understand exactly what needs to be fixed. If it's not specific and actionable, that they know what to do and how to fix it, there's a lesser chance that the correction is going to be made. The next aspect is integration. And so this is when we're beginning to put the drilling that we did implemented at making our way up to doing it in a routine. So that's from the first isolation phase all the way into a full out. We want to progressively make it more of the routine environment. So if you're working on tumbling timing, you'll do it individually on lines. Then you could do 2 or 3 at a time on lines, all together on lines, do it in your real formation in the routine. Then maybe to music, or maybe add the transition before that. So we're going to go from the section before, walk there, and then do good timing. Slowly adding it into a real routine environment is the goal. The last aspect is repetition. So basically you just repeat all that we did, specifically the integration process. Along with that comes the other two though. So each skill you want to do this multiple times for. So if you, after your first competition, you see that your jumps had the worst technique, so you decide to isolate, drill, and integrate jumps, you shouldn't never do jumps again. So you do that in January, maybe at the end of March, after you go through everything else, you go back to jumps and review it. It should be done multiple times throughout the season for each section. What's important to remember there though is try to change it up. If you do the exact same thing, you're probably going to get tired of it, but so are the athletes. So change up your energy going into it, change up how you do it, where you do it, whatever it is, to make their minds not be like stuck in what you did in the past, or get bored of that. And then this quote I just like, because I feel like athletes need it, and we do too, but you are what you repeatedly do, not what you've recently done. I feel like we've all heard before, like, oh, but I did it the last time, and it's like, okay, but the 6 times before that you didn't, and so how am I supposed to trust that that's going to happen again? Or same thing with like consistency going into competition season. So we want to do it until we can't get it wrong, and we want to do it repeatedly correct, so we can trust and have confidence that the athletes are going to do it, but also so they can feel that. So that's just natural to them, and they feel confident that they can make that correction in a routine. Okay. So, the types of training, there's a couple of different types of training here that we're going to talk about. And a couple points on coaching. So over coaching is prevalent, and we want to be careful of this, because if you overcoach your team, you're not teaching them the context-based skills and higher level ability to solve the issues. I apologize, this goes better with the things at the bottom. I don't know why I set it up like I did, but I'll just jump around. We want that intelligence to be on the mat. It is fantastic if us as coaches know how to make the stunt work. And we know that, like, if your grip is wrong, oh, maybe dip like a little bit lower to give it more power, so then you can fix your grip. That's great. But if your athletes don't know that on the mat, if that intelligence isn't on the mat, and they're not able to transfer that knowledge from practice to being on the mat, then your stunts are always going to fall if they don't know how to make those quick changes, and be smart about, oh, this happened, so I know I need to do this, not just like it falls and it's like, oh, Avery always tells me what to do, so I don't know what to do now. They need to be smart enough to make those changes. So kind of like we talked about at the beginning, that goes along with this. Ask them questions. Why did that happen? If they understand how to not, if they understand why it happened, they'll understand how to not make it happen again. That ties in here. The first type of training is interweave training. This creates lifelong learning and mastery. So this is doing new skills and learning from it instead of the repetition of the same skills. So an example that I remembered from this is, if you do the same math problem twice, you're not learning from it the second time necessarily. You just remember how to do it from the last time. But if you have to use long division, that might be a bad example. If you have to use long division in 2 different equations or 2 different problems, then you're learning how to implement long division in a different setting. And so that goes along again with changing up the context or the environment as much as we can, changing up what we expect of them. And you can change the skill with the same technique. So this first one, I think, could apply most to that preparation phase. If you want to drill dipping from your legs with your bases and really get them to get that power up, you could train doing it in a straight up extension. You can train doing it in a basket. You could train doing it in a pyramid skill. There's all of those different ways to do it, but you're still focused on the same thing. The next kind is spacing. So after you learn a skill, you want to give the athletes time to forget it so that the next time that they do it, the brain has to recall that information. I think this happens without us even knowing in cheer on water breaks, on if at just practice we're working on the jumps, then we do tumbling and then we do a full out. They have to recall that. But it's good to remember that we do want to fixate on things and we have to be very specific. But if you spend your entire practice only focusing on one exact thing, that break between the next practice might be too long of a space. So you want to make that a little bit shorter. So work on those jumps, give it a little break, and then do it in a routine or when it's in a full out at that same practice with a smaller space. They'll have to recall it, and that's a better spacing time frame. Again, don't always give them the answer or solution or what you want, make them recall it. So if you are working on jumps and then someone messes up, or when you go back to it, you can say, what do you think I want to see better in the jumps? And they have to remember those corrections that they got. Okay, so now we're going to talk a little bit about planning your practices. So what can help you in practice planning is asking the questions, how do we want to play? What are my learning objectives for today? What activities do I need to do to accomplish this? How can I organize and teach so that the athletes will love it? And how can I incorporate my team values to relate to our higher purpose? So if you're ever struggling with what you want to do in a practice or what you need, these are some guiding questions. And then it is beneficial to, after, ask yourself what needs changed or what wasn't covered. So look back at your questions and say, okay, did I do this? And then adjust for the next time as needed. Less but better approach going into practices. So if you're doing fewer things, but doing them really well and getting more carryover and implementation from the athletes, then that would be better to have more time dedicated to them than trying to fit every single thing in one practice. And then you want to make sure you're preparing for the present and the future at practices. You want them to be doing good currently, and whether it's at that practice or we're all competing within the next 2 weeks, that would be the near future. But we also have to remember our higher goals. And so if your team is hitting now, but you know you want to add skills to the pyramid later on that they don't seem ready for, you probably should continue doing endurance-based activities so that you're preparing them for the future as well. Creativity, awareness, resilience, decision-making, self-organization, they're all skills that our athletes should possess, and it's our job to encourage the development of these. Those are those higher level cognitive abilities that we are preparing them for and training them for as well, not just skill-based or physical aspects of it. And then all of this should be taken into account when you're planning your practice out, whether it be 2 months in advance or the day of. Just some things to think about as you go into each time of what are we doing today and what do I want to accomplish? Oopsies. Okay. And then I quickly mentioned it at the beginning that it wasn't all, like when I say every moment matters, it isn't all just about the skills and technique and endurance and physical and mental, We can't forget the connection, engagement, culture parts of it, which I only have this one slide on this time because I think in the past we've covered it enough, and I think I've seen some good changes in you guys implementing things, and that it's fantastic. It makes me so happy to see. And so I don't want to just skim over it because it is so important, but I think you guys understand it. So just a slide of not forgetting that the things like team bonding and connecting and engaging with the parents and the athletes, the entire parent and athlete experience of cheering and being on a team, the kids having fun and enjoying what they're doing matters. And those moments that you have to do that matter. Those are essential for the success of your team and your season. And it matters so much to plan out these events, and it helps with follow through too. I know for myself, I have all these goals of like, oh, I wish I did XYZ. But if I would just look ahead a little bit more and plan out those parent meetings, plan out the opportunities to have a team bonding game or whatever it is, then I wouldn't be rushing so much, and I would definitely have more time to do it. And I think a lot of the times everybody probably can relate to the fact of, well, I can't play a game because we need to practice more. I can't take 2 minutes to talk to that athlete because like we're going to miss out on a full out. And I am so guilty of that. But whenever I don't really still play games that much, but whenever I come back to this type of thing of, those moments, that's probably what the athletes are going to remember, the moments where they're having fun and they get to be a child and they get to experience something, not torture or yelling at them. That's what they're going to remember, and it matters more sometimes than the physical stuff. So don't forget to include those in your plans and include those in your season. Keep in mind that we need to meet athletes where they are and adapt to their needs. I mentioned before that every team, every athlete is different. And not only that, specific athletes are different day to day. Your team could be totally different than what you think going in that day because everyone failed a test at school and this person's boyfriend broke up with them and that person got yelled at by their mom in the car. And so that like fantastic plan to push them so hard might not be the best that day because they're all coming into practice already crying and in a bad mindset. So maybe flip things around quickly, do something else and come back to it. Excuse me. I included some of these because it is important for our practice planning, but also with competition season coming up, just some reminders. Athletes feed off of your energy, and your energy as a coach, our energy as coaches, can impact how the practice goes and how the warm-ups go and how competition goes. A great example happened just 30 minutes ago out in the gym. We had a pretty stressful, rough practice on Fly Girls on this past Sunday, and somebody mentioned something about someone crying, and I was like, yeah, like I was fine. And an athlete who was at that practice said, no, you weren't. You were stressed, and so we were all stressed. Whenever you act like that, we can't even stay calm. And I was like, okay, you're right, but like they know when you're faking it. They know when you're stressed, and they do feed off of that. That's something I am trying to work on going into this competition season. So if you feel like your team is extra stressed ever, maybe look internally and see what energy you're putting off. Talking to myself right now, and change your behavior, your facial expressions, whatever it may be. Along with that, just be mindful of our reactions. Let's take a minute to reflect and respond and not react negatively, especially in a stressful competition environment. And then mirror neurons just go along with athletes feeding off your energy. That's what happens when you yawn. Your mirror mirror neurons fire. And so if you see someone else yawn, you yawn. It's like a mirror. Similar things happen with day-to-day life, anything you do, people smiling, just someone looking angry. We feed off of other people's energy, and it's science-based facts that your mirror neurons will take what's around you and implement them into yourself. So again, just be aware of that. Do periodic check-ins and adjustments with yourself, with your fellow coaches, with your team, with your parents. Sit your team down and say, what's been going well? What do we need changed? What do you want moving forward? Same thing with your parents. There might be things that are like great that your team could use that you're not thinking about. And all you need to do is ask, and they can tell you. Check in and see if your practice plans need updated, or make adjustments as needed. Remember to always provide that just right challenge we've talked about in the past, but you just want to make sure that you're keeping the athletes right at the cusp of their abilities, but challenging them. You want to make them feel successful, but also like they're working hard. And so as soon as they master something, you should immediately make it more difficult so they have to work harder again. The last thing we're going to wrap up with here in terms of my information, I believe, is time that you have is valuable. I feel like an issue with a lot of our teams, and I think it stems from the athletes sometimes too, what they're used to in this gym, is wasting time. A water break doesn't need to be longer than a minute max, unless you just push them to their breaking point and people are needing inhalers and throwing up and like lying on the floor crying. They can get a 1 minute or less water break and be back out on the floor. I always tell kids, if they're like complaining about that, water doesn't help you catch your breath. Water replaces the sweat you put out. So unless you are dripping to the max, you don't need all that water. They can have a minute to catch their breath, but be back on the mat in your spot ready to go. Things like when they come in the gym, coming out of the locker room, being practice ready, talking to the coaches, trying to stall, whatever it may be aware of how your time is being spent and take control and don't waste it. I think it's hard because we do want to balance that with having fun and making those connections. But at the same time, when it's time to practice, it's time to practice, and we need to focus and get them going and make their time feel valuable too. Like, they're here for a reason, their parents are paying. It's not just because like we're drill sergeants that are mean, it's for a purpose. And so be mindful of that and try to get that back on track with how you spend your time. Okay, and then just a few things to discuss like last time, and I know there's less of us, so everybody may have to talk. I'm sorry. If you really don't want to and we don't, it's okay, but I'd love to hear from you. So the first one I have on here is, how do you create an athlete-centered environment within your team? What has worked for you to engage athletes and keep them motivated through their challenges? So just basically how you make your athletes still feel engaged and valued through all of the hard work. Maddie?
Yeah, I was pausing to let others speak up if they wanted to, because obviously you know my answers. But I think especially on Flag Girls this season, we've made an effort to like let athletes have a voice. And so especially like if something hasn't been working, or like we continue to leave practice and say like, I don't know why that's not getting better, or we continue to have this issue, then sometimes we have to ask ourselves like, okay, well, let's wait a second. Maybe the team has any input. We did this recently, like I think it was like a week or two ago, because we were struggling with, people actually implementing changes in like smaller sections at practice. And so we wanted to take it to the team to ask them what they think would be beneficial to work on at practice, or what areas of the routine they feel need the most work. And so, like I said, it allows them to have a voice, and then it also kind of you're kind of like tricking them, because then whenever you go to work on that, it's like, well, they think that they suggested it, even whether or not like you thought it needed work or not, but they might be even more motivated to like work hard and try and make changes and be better, because it came from either themselves or a teammate. And so yeah, I think not being afraid to like ask the team either like what they want to do, what they think needs to improve, why they think something is happening or going wrong or continuing to be an issue. Even things, I just thought of another example for like practice themes and practice wear. Something as small as like letting them choose a practice theme, instead of whatever was on the calendar, just makes it more fun to come to practice. And again, it makes them engaged and makes it feel like, they came up with the idea and my coaches care about me.
Yeah, I feel like that's that sense of autonomy that's always like it's hard to miss, because it's so easy, like for me too, to just be like, okay, well, the practice calendar is posted and they know when to be here and what to be in and blah blah blah. But there are things that the athletes can be in control of and have control of. And I feel like that's kind of, even from a young age, like it's harder with the little ones, but even from a younger age, we should want to start developing that like leadership and ownership and decision making, because that's what I mean, those not like cheer necessarily related things that like as a coach we want to grow and develop, starts with that type of thing. Thanks. Okay, next, what have you found that works, oops, that's a typo, best for you to get athletes to implement corrections in the routines? I think this kind of goes along with Maddie's comment there, and something that I struggle with, so I'm truly looking for input. But like, you work on sections, and sometimes it gets corrected when you isolate sections, sometimes not, but then it always looks the same in a routine. So anything that works for you to get results?
For Supersonic, I started this 2 practices ago, but or like a few practices ago, but whenever we do our first pull out, because we've been like kind of practicing like our backstage warm up. So when we get the big throw, we do a pull out, and during that first like pull out or warm up, I will like give corrections to people. I've been writing them down on the boogie board things. And then whenever they go back onto the floor to do their real like pull out, then if they don't fix those corrections, we've been having like conditioner burpees. And
Oh, okay.
they don't like conditioning, so typically
Yeah.
they try to best to
Yeah.
fix it.
No, that's smart to have it like written down too, because like we do say so much as coaches and like correct so much, but they hear so much from so many
Yeah.
people. So like, or they've heard it over and over again, but like having it written down to be like, oh, well, this is what I said. I bet that helps. That's a good idea.
Yeah, I
feel
know
like,
with
go ahead.
Star Shock, like with the little kids, something that has worked for us is like before you go into a routine, like highlighting a small amount of things that like you're really looking for or you really want them to work on, instead of like, expecting them to do everything amazingly perfect. But it's like, I really want to see our jump section a little bit sharper and our tumbling with straighter legs, so that they get used to focusing on those things. And then maybe next time you add something or you try to work on something new. And then I think in general, always trying to be like an active coach at the front of the mat. And so like, even just yelling things during the routine to give reminders or get them in the habit of like subconsciously thinking about that if they've heard you say it over and over and over and over and over again at practice whenever they get to that section.
Mhm. Yeah. I feel like getting more creative than just a threat with conditioning is needed, because they don't like to condition, but one, follow through of that is like mandatory for it to be effective. And like, I think they get so used to it that it's kind of like whatever, like they still don't like it, but it's like, that's, yeah, like that's just something else that my coaches say, I guess so. And so on the other end of that too, I think especially with the little ones, positive like praise is really important. If you at the end of the routine are like, oh my gosh, you had straight legs in your back walkovers, I love that so much, then everybody wants to be that person that gets called out. Okay. Does our current weekly practice plan form that you fill out on the Google form each week help you in your practice planning? Why or why not? And is there anything that you would change or add to it? I'm like genuinely asking, not offended or anything. I just want to know if there's anything we can do to make it better and if it's effective.
I think it's effective because it like puts you in the right mindset of what you want to get done. But I do wish that we could do them for like a month instead of like bi-weekly, so we can like plan out a month. And then like maybe then go bi-weekly, but like just to see like how you want your month played out, and then maybe like going in and be like, okay, and this practice, I'm gonna do this and this.
Okay. Okay. Do you think you would want that mandatory to do per month, or like just a template to help you plan out a month?
Either.
Maddie, why are you laughing?
Well, I don't have to do them, but I did it for you once, and I personally was not a fan of having to do that. Not a fan of having it be mandatory. It's fine.
Yeah, I forget it sometimes. And yeah, no, I was just because since it fit the theme, I just like realized that no one has ever like really checked in on that. It's kind of been mandatory and then never checked in on. So I thought I'd throw it in here. Okay, last one. This is also just like open to discussion, but as we enter competition season, is there anything that anyone has questions on, comments on, concerns about, anything like, anything on your mind about competition season that we can discuss, that anyone can help with? It's okay if not, but I just wanted to throw it out there. That's okay. If I didn't open it though, I'd feel bad, like I wasn't checking in.
I think I asked everything that I had questions. I think still a little nervous.
Oh, you cut out. I'm sorry if I cut you off, you didn't finish, but we couldn't hear the end of that. I hope that if you can hear me, what I said helped.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Sorry, Allison called me on the other line and I was trying to like disconnect from her.
You're okay. You're okay.
I'm just a little nervous. I feel like because I've not been there, and not like you said earlier, you feel like if you're nervous that the kids are going to kind of feed off of that. And
Mhm.
I'm just like a little nervous that I'm not going to know what I'm doing, but it made me feel better that someone's going to be there with me that's done it before.
Yes, and it's such a good point, and it made me realize that like we have newer coaches, not new, well, newer, yes, and new to All-Star coaches this season. I mean, probably every season at least one. And I think that's something that's maybe missed, and we just kind of trust that like, oh, they'll just follow along. But that education side of it is important because I can assure you that there will be somebody that's done it before with you. Like the chances of nobody being available are really low. But like if there is a good chance that Shelby and I maybe, but like both can't be there. But I feel like confident that there are other people that know enough. But it is a good point that like if I take myself back to that first competition I've ever been to, like I didn't know what to do. I wish I had more information. Now it's just like second nature. But we'll be there to help if you have questions along the way. As it gets closer, if you think of anything, just reach out and we'll help you along as it gets closer. That's scary. It's like next week now, guys. Oh my God.
I know.
Crazy. Okay. Well, that is the end. It's my favorite slide. But Maddie, what are those claps? She put up the clap emoji.
I did a thumbs down at the beginning whenever you said sorry I was late, but you didn't notice.
Oh, sorry. But thank you guys for being here. I hope it was beneficial. If you need anything or have questions or anything, just let me know. I'm always here, but I appreciate it and have a good night.
All right, thank you.
Welcome. Bye-bye. Have a nice night.